Hey guys, what's going on? This is Atave here, and we are back with another episode on the channel. So, this is basically a start of a series. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cover different methods of authentication using Node.js and Express. So, basically, we are going to cover every type of authentication, like not every, but basically the most famous one. So, we are going to cover the local authentication, which is the website authentication or the authentication made from scratch. Then we are going to look at Google authentication, we are going to look at Facebook authentication, and we are going to do a lot of stuff here. So before we start everything, we need to learn what are JSON Web Tokens and basically what are tokens, because we are going to see a lot of tokens in all of these things. So I thought, like, let's start the series with just JSON Web Tokens and it will be so good. So basically what JSON Web Tokens are, so let me just show you. So so the basic method of authentication, like, you have a server, right? Let's keep it a server, and you have a client. Here we go. And now what happens is, whenever you want to authenticate a user, so basically how do you authenticate a user? It's just by email and password, right? Now there are many methods. If you just think, you will just know, like, you will come up with different ideas of authenticating users. So what JSON Web Tokens proposes, its idea is like, you send your email and password to your server, and now what it will do is it will check from the database if the email and password is correct, and if it is correct, we will send a JSON Web Token with the ID of user as a payload. So basically what all of this stuff means, so a JSON Web Token is basically a long string which makes absolutely no sense. So maybe it can be like this, and then we have one dot, and then we have other dot, and then we go like this. So in every JSON Web Token you will see that we have two dots in between. So let me show you. This is one and this is one. So the JSON Web Tokens have a lot of parts in it. So let's cover the parts of the token. So what will happen is that there are three parts. So the first one is the algorithm to make the token. The second part is the payload of the token, and the third part is the signature. So whenever we make a JSON Web Token, right, we send this to the server. No, we send. We send this. Let's make this again. Now after checking everything, this is a JSON Web Token. We send this to the client. Okay, yeah. We send this to the client. Now it's the client's responsibility to store it somewhere. So basically it might store it in a cookie, or maybe in, I guess, local storage. We will talk that in a bit, but this is just the way to store data in your client storage. So it's basically, we are just storing our token so that we can reference it later, with even after refreshing the page. So what will happen, like, we have all of this now. So what is the algorithm? So basically it's just an algorithm thing. Like, you don't even need to focus on that. It's just the basic algorithm thing. If you want to edit the algorithm which is used for making JSON Web Token, you can do it, but most of the time you don't need to. Now the payload of the token is basically something which you pass into the token, right? So what can be inside there is, maybe it can be ID of your user, or maybe username of your user, or maybe something else, or maybe email. But remember, never put sensitive info. Sorry if my spelling is wrong. So okay, yeah. So you don't want to put passwords in this. So remember, JSON Web Token is not encrypted. It's just a random string, but it's still not encrypted. You can just get the payload of your token very easily, and I'll show you how in a bit. But then you will say that, hey, now JSON Web Token can be just edited, right? Now, so if you want, then you can just edit it, and then if you have the token here, so I can just change my ID of user, and now I can act as some other user, and now I can interact with his profile, right? But here's where the signature comes in place. So basically the signature is encrypted, right? So it is the only part of the token which is encrypted, and it contains the secret key, right? So what does this mean? So the secret key, nobody has access to it, so this is set in the server, and now when we are signing the key in the server, we use the secret key to sign this token. So what does this mean? If the signature is correct, it means that the token is valid and it is signed from the server. But if you try to change the payload of the token, so if the user ID is 1 and I try to change it to 2 somehow, you can. If I try to change it to 2, immediately the signature becomes invalid, right? It immediately becomes invalid. So why? So let me tell you why. So it's because of the encryption thing. So it's encrypted on the base of the token, payload of the token. So it's very natural that if somebody tries to tamper with the payload, it will just get rid of the signature part, and it will say that, hey, this token has been tampered, don't consider it. So basically whenever this token, let me just get rid of this. So when this tampered token is sent back to the server immediately knows that this token has been tampered, and that's because that the encryption methods and everything with the secret key doesn't follow, and that's how they know that this is tampered and this is not the user that user is trying to interact with. So that's the security part of JSON Web Tokens. We will get into more detail when we actually code this thing out, and then you will have more clarity. But I wanted to tell you this because we need to know this. This is some basic information about JSON Web Token, because if I start making directly videos on JSON Web Token and how to code everything, it will be just like you don't understand anything about JSON Web Token. So it's better if I just make you understand like in a short video. So basically this is how all the JSON Web Token thing works. And if somebody tries to just edit the signature out, it's just directly straight up invalid token right there. So that's how the security parts come in. And again, you never want to place any passwords in the payload, and this is the part where I show you why you don't want to do that. So basically if I just get rid of this, and now we are at the jwt.io. I'll just leave this link in the description box. And now this is the example of a JSON Web Token. So this is the official website of JWT, and now you will see that this token has 3 parts, right? The first part, the second part, and third part. So you can see the different colors, and then and each is separated by a dot, and you don't need to know anything about the algorithm and everything. So it just okay. So it basically just says it has some type of algorithm, and it's type of JWT. So I don't think you need to mess anything here unless you really want to and you know what you're doing. So but in payload, what you can do is you have all of these things, right? Now what I can do is I can just go to signature, and what can happen is like if I even press backspace 1 here, so I just remove C, and you see this is invalid signature. Somebody tampered with the signature, right? And that's not something what the server wants. This is a tampered token and this is invalid. So but here if I try to just mess around with the token, just let me just try to remove this queue, you will see that this is an invalid signature, and you can still see the payload, right? You can still see the payload. So if you have any passwords in here, you will really see the passwords in there. So anyone try to decoding the JWT will see the passwords. So that's why you never want to have passwords in this. But now what will happen is that this token is still it has invalid signature, and once your server identifies that this thing has invalid signature, it should straight away reject. And that's how JWT works. So let me just get it back here. Now let me just change the payload of the data. So it's basically JSON, because it's JSON Web Token, so we provide JSON data in here. So if I just add some new data here, so now just see how the token updates as I type. So yeah, I can just do this, and now I can just write a new email@email.com, and now you see that this token has become more larger, and that's because we just added an email field. And now again we can just get rid of this 9, and you will see that we can still see the email, but it's like something like that. And that's basically how everyone can tamper with JSON Web Tokens. And yeah, the signature and everything. So basically, yeah, and this is basically a generator for JWT, so I can just make a generate JWT and I can just share it. But that's not what we are going to do. We are going to make a server, we are going to do proper authentication, we are going to generate JWT in the server itself, we are going to sign it using a special secret key, and then we are going to just send the token to the client, and then we are going to see how the authentication should work in the client. And that's how we are gonna kick things off here. So I think that's all for this episode. Hope you're having a great day in this all of these days, and I hope you learned something new from this series. If you like this video, just click like, and if you want to support my channel, just hit subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. So yeah, that is it guys. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.